Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for your presence this afternoon. We appreciate it. And very soon, we possibly will be outlining the reason for the invitation this afternoon. But let's begin the event with a word of prayer. We want to call on Sir Johnson Ewa, the Director of Finance for the Cybersecurity Authority, to lead us to do this.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life. Lord, we ask and acknowledge your presence. We submit our minds and hearts for your guidance towards this press conference. We ask that you bless the work of our hands this afternoon. This and every other prayer we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Sir Johnson, thank you. So this afternoon's engagement, of course, we're having a joint press conference with the Public Procurement Authority, together with the Cybersecurity Authority. This year, the Cybersecurity Authority triggered a major regulatory exercise, and that is to license cybersecurity service providers, accredit cybersecurity establishment, and also accredit cybersecurity professionals. The cybersecurity industry is a growing commodity across the globe, and a number of countries have come to the awareness of the reality of what is happening across the globe and the fact that the industry is providing numerous jobs. There are also a lot of national security concerns. In the Americas, in the Asias, a lot of legislative instruments are being considered to ensure that the space is regulated. Now, as such, it means that practitioners within the space will not be allowed to operate business as usual or as normal. Ghana is going this way, taking a lot of good examples from Singapore. In the course of press conference, I'm sure that details would also be given for us to appreciate this significant step that the government of Ghana is taking. So once again, we sincerely appreciate all of you. I'll take the opportunity to do some few introductions. From the Public Procurement Authority, we have the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Frank Mate. Please let's appreciate his presence. We also have the Deputy Chief Executive, Mr. Kwame Prempeh. The Director of Policy and Strategy is also here, Mr. Carl Loko. We have the Director, Benchmarking and Evaluation, Mr. Eric Appiah. Then we have the Deputy Director, Information Technology, Mr. Thomas Bonzi. Mr. Bonzi gave me sleepless night, and I'm glad he's here together with the entire team. We have Mr. Ebenezer Labi, the Head of Finance. Then we have the Legal Officer, Nina Nihad. We have the Principal Executive Assistant, Sefako Atta. And then we have my colleague, Marian Oting, Acting Head, Corporate Affairs. Thank you very much. From the CSA team, I have my Director General, Dr. Albert Nchibwesiako. We have the Acting Director, Capacity Building and Awareness Creation, Mr. Alex Sopong. We have the lead for the legal unit of the Cybersecurity Authority, Madam Jennifer Mensah. We also have the Acting Director, Administration, Madam Messi Araba Ketsin. We have the Acting Director, Child Online Protection, Madam Ipoa Brown Eisen. And then we also have the head of our procurement unit, Mr. Kopna AJ. Together with all the team members, we want to welcome all of you. We sincerely appreciate your presence this afternoon. Without taking much of your time, we directly would want to engage the Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Nchibwe-Siakon, for his statement.
My colleague, Madam, thank you for the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cybersecurity Authority. Once again, we are pleased to have you, media, for accepting our invitation to have a conversation with us. I'm not sure, I'm seeing some familiar faces. Is that Emilia? Hi, where have you been? Thank you for bringing Ghost. Maybe she was playing while, I think, for close to 12 years. When I returned to the country, my first media engagement, she was one of them at the time with Daily Guide, right? And ever since you disappeared, thank God, please find the CSA as your home. Madam, please make sure you connect, and every media engagement we would like to have Emilia. Emilia, nice to meet you again. And I remember those days when you were championing and promoting cybersecurity activities. And I'm happy you're still operating in that particular space. But I think the most important recognition is to my colleague, Chief Executive of the Public Procurement Authority, Mr. Frank Mante, and your team for accepting to join us, and most importantly, lend support to this important process. I must say, myself and Frank, we are next door neighbors. Frank, did you walk to this place or? Of course, you know, that's okay. We are closed door neighbors. But you won't have all your closed door neighbors, you know, seeing the positive in what you're doing for them to leave their decks, and not just alone, Frank. You came with your team, your deputy, your directors are here to support us. I think today is a special day for us, and we thank you that you're supporting us to achieve our mandate. Again, I also want to commend my team at the CSA who have worked tirelessly in coming up with this activity right from the development of the guidelines which are providing the framework for the licensing and accreditation of cybersecurity service providers, cybersecurity establishment, and cybersecurity professionals in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the importance of cybersecurity development as part of our digitization effort cannot be overemphasized. And this necessitated the enactment of the Cybersecurity Act, which eventually established the Cybersecurity Authority. So the authority is established by Act 1038, which is the nation's cybersecurity legislation. As a regulator in this dynamic space, Section 49, 57, and 58 of the Act mandate the authority to license cybersecurity service providers, accredit cybersecurity establishments, and also cybersecurity professionals. Accordingly, an exercise to this effect commenced on 1st of March 2023 to ensure that only licensed and accredited professionals and institutions are lawfully mandated to engage in this business. Of course, the exercise commenced after a number of consultative processes. I think we engaged possibly too much. That's it. But I think we thought this is a new area. Technically, it's new to many people. But also, regulating in a space of this nature, I think consensus building and understanding is key. So we didn't just do consultative meetings, but to build capacity, especially for the institutions and the sectors in which those regulations will apply. The rationale for this process is to ensure compliance with Act 1038 and to provide a streamlined mechanism for ensuring that Cybersecurity service providers, establishment, and professionals throughout the country carry out their activities in accordance with the law, but also international best practices. My colleague at COMS raised certain imperatives that led to the line system, and I think she mentioned some of them as our mandate to ensure that we provide safety to consumers. But she did also mention that the cyber environment also has a huge connection to our socioeconomic development and our national security interests, and therefore it is appropriate that the right regulatory framework are implemented to ensure that we achieve sustainable development, whilst at the same time ensuring the development of this emerging industry. Ladies and gentlemen, considering the cross-sectorial nature of cybersecurity and its effect on the socio-economic development of our dear country, it is expedient that the CSA collaborate with key stakeholders to ensure that the right systems, processes, and guidelines are put in place to develop the ecosystem. It is in this view that the CSA is collaborating with the Public Procurement Authority with the objective of enforcing the various provisions and guidelines around the licensing, but also the accreditation, especially to covered entities. It is very important that there are a number of institutions that this regulation applies. But today's meeting is focusing on cybersecurity services to what we call covered entities. I want to explain, it is Frank's responsibility to explain who these covered entities are. But I believe in his submission, he's likely to explain that to you to appreciate which institutions are we looking at in terms of enforcing this legislation. So Frank, when you take the mic, then you do that explanation for us. The focus areas of collaboration include ensuring that covered entities in procuring cybersecurity services in accordance with the guidelines developed in accordance with Act 1038, engage cybersecurity service providers who are licensed by the CSA, and ensuring that covered entities engage in cybersecurity establishment and professionals who are also accredited. The cybersecurity service providers are those who provide specific services to protect our digital infrastructure. The establishment, more like the facilities like Digital Forensics Lab. The police uses the Digital Forensic Lab to process electronic evidence to be used in court. But we also have what we call SOC. You may be hearing Security Operating Center, which provide active monitoring to digital systems. So those are what we call the establishment, the facilities that also help or it aid in the delivery of cybersecurity services. And of course, the professionals are the individuals who have acquired certain level of training and experience and are deemed to be in a good position to offer cybersecurity services. That is what this regulation is about. Through this collaboration, the PPA will ensure that as part of vetting procurement application to the PPA board, cybersecurity issues are considered, and cybersecurity service providers who submit applications to PPA board are accredited by the CSA before being considered for any form of engagement. The law clearly says, 49, it is illegal if one offers cybersecurity services without a license. PPA collaboration is only to give effect to that legal mandate. I think it's good. It is not a new law being created. It is working together. This meeting here is collaboration, that two agencies of the Republic have decided to work together to ensure we achieve a common goal for the Ghanaian public. Furthermore, the CSA through the PPA will also urge covered procurement entities to ensure compliance with standards and inculcate the licensing accreditation provisions in their qualification and pre-qualification criteria for selection of the cybersecurity service providers, establishment and professionals under Section 22 and 23 of the Public Procurement Act. Frank, I'm only quoting your law. Give confirmation or otherwise to this as amended. I think it's important. The qualification and pre-qualifications are the normal things you hear. My colleague, procurement manager, is here. Those are the words when he invites me to sit on the entity tender committee. But we believe, and he has advised us in-house, that some of this thing can be introduced at that level. It is important as we are building a digital economy, we look at the cybersecurity imperatives as well. It's very important, and hence some of these pointers coming out for conversation. This partnership will also go a long way in supporting PPA in terms of discharging its lawful mandate. They are not just approving government contracts. I think they have their own system mechanisms. And it's not just value for money, they are looking at it. But I think PPA also has a responsibility that the people they give clearance to do government business meet certain threshold. And going forward, cybersecurity will be one of the key things. We've had discussion with the Minister for Public Enterprises, Honorable Kujo, and he has a similar sentiment that, look, we need to take our cybersecurity seriously, and hence this conversation. The CSA has afforded the Cybersecurity Service Providers, establishment, and professionals a grace period until the end of September, 30th September 2023, within which to obtain a license or accreditation, following which public sector institutions will be required to engage the service providers, establishments, and professionals licensed and accredited by the CSA in compliance with the cybersecurity law. So please, just a bit of clarity. The process is still ongoing, but what I understand, and by the advice we receive from our legal in-houses, by the end of September, that is starting 1st of October, any entity that offers cybersecurity services in Ghana without the license, at least either a provisional license to start with, that will be a breach of the law. And that is where we are seeking collaboration with the PPA to enforce. We still have the end of this month and the full month of September to comply. Ladies and gentlemen, when this regulation is finally enforced, Ghana is on course to become the first country on the African continent and one of the few in the world after countries like Singapore to introduce a licensing regime for cybersecurity service providers in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, and my dear Ghanaians, this is one of the important developments that the authority has undertaken. And I do believe even my media colleagues will be wondering what the 125 means. I will leave it. If it's a question, a media question, they will answer. But cyber is a global commodity, and you need to adopt certain best practices, which are consistent with international best practices as well. But it's not a question of wait for other countries to start first before you do. I think Ghana is leading the way in this direction. We collaborate a lot more with Singapore, and I think the process has been smooth so far in terms of the registration processes and others. It's a leadership thing, and I think if you look at the way we are investing in our digitalization, we cannot wait for the harm to be caused to our digital economy before we start giving serious attention to this particular area. The CSA has, since the commencement of this exercise, engaged agencies, institutions, and associations that offer cybersecurity-related services. The authority has utilized traditional and social media platforms to disseminate to the public the impact and importance of this exercise on Ghana's cybersecurity development. This regulatory exercise, which has been enforced, has significant benefit to the industry, including our national and global visibility, information and threat intelligence, industry recognition, eligibility for industry forum membership, among other benefits that not just the institution, but also even the professionals themselves. Going forward, if anybody requests for a cybersecurity firm to do a job for me, our website will have a repository of licensed cybersecurity service providers. Equally, we're doing the same thing for professionals. And I think it has a huge impact in developing. And I've spoken to some of our consulting firms who bring consultants from abroad. It's not going to be like that. You can't just fly somebody from India, Pakistan, or wherever to come and do that. You don't do that. Frankly, some of you may have some experiences. You may have all the skill set and experience. Can you just fly to the US and do what we call penetrative testing in a US federal environment? Can any one of you, let's say the Department of Energy of the US, their critical system, you are Ghanaian, you are good, you're a top hacker, and you get there, they open their system for you. No, thank you. I'm happy the media is appreciating this. It's the same way that we are also doing. It cannot be. And they have to be subjected to the same clearance procedures, because the cyber environment is quite intrusive. We need to protect the Republic's data. It's very important, especially if the systems are designated as critical information infrastructure system. So these are some of the imperatives that we need to. It's a security domain. And beyond the competency and experience, we need to even establish that the people who are given access to those systems are fit for purpose in terms of their integrity, security backgrounds, and others. And I think Ghana is also showing leadership and commitment to ensure that our space is protected as a sovereign nation. The government of Ghana, through CSA and other relevant agencies such as PPA, have a shared responsibility of addressing cybersecurity matters and are committed to fighting cybercrime and maintaining public safety of our citizens' life on the internet. The CSA, through this partnership, will ensure that best practices are observed, especially in procuring cybersecurity services in the public sector. Ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that in our subsequent meetings, Ghana's cybersecurity will have grown at least one step further, especially this particular single exercise. I do believe we'll have significant, tangible measurables as we work together with the PPA. And we kindly request the media to support this effort and to promote this agenda so that we can protect our digital ecosystem. But Frank, again, and your team, I really appreciate your commitment to support other sister agency to achieve its mandate. Thank you very much, media, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Nchibwesiakun, thank you very much for your statement. We'll take the opportunity to listen to the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority. And once again, let me just make this emphatic statement that the Cybersecurity Authority is very much privileged to have the Public Procurement Authority on board, affirming this regulatory exercise and giving all support together with the team. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Frank Mante.
Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, my very good brother, management and staff of Cybersecurity Authority, and my colleagues from PPA, my good brother Kwame is here. We are twin brothers. You can see we are both wearing blue. Our friends from the media, you know, we are told that the media is the fourth arm of government. We appreciate what you do. I know usually procurement matters are usually one of the very topical ones. So. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and thank you. Doc, thank you for inviting us into one of the best conference rooms I've ever seen. The Public Procurement Authority actually acknowledges the efforts and accomplishments of the Ghana Cyber Authority. We do know that the Act was passed in 2020, which means that it is one of the very young institutions. But so far, we are very excited about the strides being taken by the authority headed by my good brother, Doc. Please keep up the good work. And then the fact that you've even thought about this decision to have this collaboration with PPA to ensure that what is grounded in law actually works shows that indeed you are the right person to be here today to head this very important institution. So in line with what Doc said, Section 47, 57, 58 of the Cybersecurity Act at 1/1038, the Cybersecurity Authority is expected to license service providers and professionals within the cybersecurity space. To do this, the Cybersecurity Authority obviously cannot do this on their own. Cybersecurity Authority, this mandate does not necessarily cover the procurement of what says service providers, which is why we are partnering with Cybersecurity Authority to ensure that this legal mandate is actually what accomplished. The Public Procurement Authority, we are very delighted about this collaboration with the Cybersecurity Authority to enforce the guidelines for licensing cybersecurity service providers, accreditation of cybersecurity establishments, and then cybersecurity professionals, in line with the provisions of the laws, as I mentioned earlier, Section 47, 57, and then 58 of what? Act 1038. This will contribute to the overall objective of the Public Procurement Authority as found under Section 2 of the Public Procurement Act to harmonize the process of public procurement, to ensure judicious and effective use of state resources, and to ensure that public procurement is conducted in a fair, transparent, and non-discriminatory manner. The areas of collaboration, as indicated by my good brother, is to ensure that any procurement entity, that intends to procure any cybersecurity-related services, to ensure that the suppliers or these tenders who are selected actually are certified. So to the extent that, Doctor mentioned applications being submitted to the PPA board, it doesn't end there. Applications that are submitted to the PPA board can either be for single source procurement under Section 40 of the Procurement Act or restricted tender under Section 38 and 34 of the Procurement Act. These two methods are not the only methods by which an entity can procure. This means that we have competitive methods of procurement. So for example, if the entity is going to select a cybersecurity organization or a professional or service provider to provide services, and it is through a competitive process, the procurement entity has a responsibility to ensure that the people being selected are what? Certified, or that they've obtained the licenses from what? The Cybersecurity Authority. Indeed, Doc mentioned Section 22 and Section 23 of what? The Public Procurement Act. Section 22 of the Public Procurement Act actually talks about the qualification. Who is qualified to take part in government contract? We cannot be seen to be giving our money to people who are not qualified. That is how Section 22 is there. And the good thing is that the crafters of the law actually envisage that there could be the possibility for such intervention to come in. So specifically, if you look at Section 22, subsection F, it says that the procurement entity can introduce any criteria that they deem appropriate, provided that it does not what? Restrict competition. Okay? So the requirements from the law as we find under Section 1038, under Section 47, 57, and 58, the combined effects of these three provisions in relation to Section 22, subsection F of the Public Procurement Act means that whatever we are doing here is not illegal. It's properly what? Granted by law. Okay? He mentioned Section 23, which has to do with what we call pre-qualification. Okay? You pre-qualify. Just as you do shortlisting for selection of consultants, we can use that same process. Which simply means that just as you are asking institutions, to provide registered company certificates, audited what? Taxes, 3 audited taxes, audited statements, you want to find out whether they pay net contributions. Similarly, you must put in there a requirement that that institution or consultant or the professional to be engaged has what? Obtained certification from what? Cybersecurity Authority. Please, this is to the procurement entities. Please ensure that when you are procuring, the tenderers who are invited through a competitive process demonstrate that they've obtained what? This clearance. And for those applications that will be submitted to PPA through single source or restricted tenders, when you submit these applications to X without seeing this certification, we'll write back to you. And no approval is going to be granted for any application without evidence of what? Certification from Cybersecurity Authority. So just as I mentioned earlier, as in the case of contractors, for example, if you are bidding for a road contract or any works and infrastructure, you need to demonstrate that you have Ministry of Roads and Highway certificates, classification certificate, Ministry of Works and Housing if you are building works for the public sector. So similarly, we will expect to see what? So it's not new. We expect to see this. And then if anybody should come and say, what is your authority in law? Then I'll make reference to section 22, subsection 1, F is there. So PPA will ensure that this collaboration, comes to stay. It's not a 9-day wonder. We are not just meeting here to talk about this and we are gone. That's why I'm here with all the people who matter in PPA, with the exception of my board. And I know that the board, has given me the blessing, my colleagues and I, the blessing to do what it is that we are required to do to protect the interests of the public. So the government of Ghana, through the Cybersecurity Authority and other relevant stakeholders, such as the PPA, have what? A shared responsibility in addressing what cybersecurity related matters. In fact, just last night, I was telling my good brother in his office, last night I was on Ghana Web trying to read. That's what I do usually before I sleep. And I saw one of the assemblies, I won't mention the name, their website has been compromised. It is no news. This is a cyber crime. Even PPA, we've had our fair share of this, where people try to clone websites. So it's a very serious matter. Okay. In fact, people argue these days that when I did procurement, my LLM in, what is it called? Procurement, we did defense procurement. And then the professor said to us, the people are moving away from using the guns. Okay. The US government, for example, spend loads of money on what? Intelligence in this area. Because once somebody goes in, I don't want to mention the names of institutions, I don't have the permission of my good brother. But there are top institutions in this country who have been affected. Sometimes, some of these people are able to go into the systems, ask for ransom. Okay. So it is important that we have an institution such as the Cybersecurity Authority to man and help public sector institutions to be able to protect our infrastructure. If not, then we'll just be naked. And like you said, we shouldn't expect somebody to come from another country and then be telling us what we need to do. We have all the brains here, and so we should be able to get this done. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to say that we are very convinced that going forward, we are going to see a lot more improvement in what it is that we do. Like I said, the authority is very young, but seeing what it is doing already, and I'm not surprised. And then I think I'll have to be coming to him for more apple to see how I'm able to help, together with my colleague Kwame, to also drive PPA towards where we want it to go. Before I end, I think there was an issue about what a covered entity is. So, once you are owned by Ghana government, you are owned. You can be a registered company, all right, but you are owned by Ghana government. So, for example, Electricity Company of Ghana, Ghana Water Company, Gridco, VRA, they are owned by what government? So they usually will report directly to the state and interest governance authority, that's SIGA. So we usually will call them again state enterprises, but they all fall under the public sector. They are owned by government, so they are all covered entities. So no institution can say they take themselves out of it. And so for purposes of procurement, they are still even required to go by what? The Procurement Act, except where a waiver has been granted by the board of PPA. Usually we don't do that. We are very reluctant. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my colleagues, let me say a very big thank you to you again, Doc, and a very big thank you to the fourth arm of government, which is the media, for taking time to come and then cover this event this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Mr. Frank Mante, thank you very much, and Director General Dr. Albert Nchibwesiakun, thank you. Media, it's your forum now. We'll take the opportunity to listen to the concerns, the queries that you have for these two institutions that are triggering this regulatory mandate and also affirming this regulatory activity. We've had the opportunity to listen to the Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority. Let's pick your thoughts, your questions, whilst we still have them here, and then we would also make time for exclusive interviews. So we have the microphone now for you to be asking your questions. You just raise your hand, give us your name, your designation, and then you would have the opportunity to ask your questions. Madam Emilia, so the Director General gave you a wonderful platform. I think you were part of the introduction of Director General that we didn't capture. We want to hear from you, your thought. I'm sure that will trigger some thought also from your colleagues on this activity that the CSA is advancing.
Good evening. It's quite unfortunate how to put on the... I have a very bad cold. Please forgive me. I must say that this is a very good achievement, and I don't want to talk much. I'll be happy if the authority can let us know how many professionals have been licensed, entities that have been licensed, and consultants as well. And also for the authority, what kind of measures are you going to put in place to ensure that the companies that are invited for tenders are really certified by the Cybersecurity Authority? Thank you.
Much, Madam Emilia. I knew you had something under your sleeve, so thanks for asking. Dr. Albert Nchibesiako.
I think there are two in one. So I'll answer the first one. The second, certainly, because the authority does not handle procurement. Any procurement-related question will go to my colleague, Frank. Even the first question is two in one. How many? I think just for the purpose of education, the processes commence on the 1st of March, 2023. And we're still within the course of the 6-month period that we dedicated to engage, hand-holding, build capacity, and to assist with the process. So I think, Madam Jennifer, you need to give me the figures so far. The question will be how many service providers have registered to be licensed, because the licensing also goes through a certain process. First of all, you need to apply. You submit certain documentation, and then there is some vetting that takes place, including some checks that needs to be run. So it's not an instant process. So therefore, we have quite a number of institutions that have gone through the process. But I think, Madam Jennifer, you can give those indicators. The cybersecurity service providers, the establishment, and also the professionals. Please, you can answer that. You stop writing and answer that. After that, it goes.
So for cybersecurity professionals, we have 448 individuals have registered. For cybersecurity establishments, we have 25 entities have registered. And for cybersecurity service providers, 92 entities have registered. Thank you.
So I think pretty well. Of course, we had some projections, isn't it? And we are around 70%. Is it about 60, 70%? What is that?
For CSPs, we are actually about 90.
All right. Okay. So please just highlight that. In terms of the target.
So in terms of the target, for CSPs, we are actually around 90%. For the CSPs is the cybersecurity service providers. For cybersecurity establishments, in terms of target, we are at 50%. And for cybersecurity professionals, we are around 40%.
So I think these are the, it's a new area. Of course, some people are operating without even they knowing. they are actually under this legislation. But the first one, which is the service providers, of course, they deliver service. So I think, and they are the very people, institutions that will be affected by that. So we are reaching out to PPA to let them know that, look, we have now the net. We're targeting 100 cybersecurity firms, and about 90% of them have actually gotten. So the compliance from that standpoint is pretty good. In terms of the establishment, again, some of them are even the private environment, which is not being used to really offer a service, as in for monetary reward. So there's a little bit of wait and see kind of reaction. We're still engaging, but the professionals is also one area. We keep on saying, as a country, we don't have cybersecurity professionals, but quite a good number are coming in. And if you look at the credential, some people have studied and worked abroad with some good experience in the cybersecurity environment. All of them are coming on board. And to help, as I said earlier, if one of the big four get a big contract, I think, Kwame, one of the things we're going to tell them is, hey, Mr. Big Four, have you considered the Ghanaian expertise? Frank, Kwame, if they tell you they are not here, call me, and then we'll pull out data for them. I think we need to develop this economy. It's a new area for Ghanaians. They are talent here. We just need to use this mechanism to develop it. Frank, please, the second question I've seen, the mechanisms we're putting in place to help us achieve this goal. Thank you.
In terms of the mechanisms, basically it's to ensure that the tenders, when I say tenders, it actually makes reference to, I can't say service providers now, because until the person is engaged, he cannot be called a service provider. So the tenders, people will be taking part in the procurement processes prior to the award of contract to them, with a focus on the provision of cybersecurity services. We have to ensure that as part of the documents that they submit, as part of their tenders or proposals, they add that evidence of what? They haven't been, accredited or licensed by the Cybersecurity Authority. That is why I said earlier that as far as PPA is concerned, sometimes when people hear about single source procurement, they think, oh, every procurement at all undertaken by any public sector institution is through single source. That is not the case. Okay? We have competitive methods of procurement and non-competitive methods of procurement. The non-competitive method of procurement is a single source, which I said is under Section 40 and 41 of the Procurement Act. Aside that, there are so many other methods of procurement. So, for example, if the people are few, or in the market that we are, is an oligopolistic market, which means that the providers of that particular service are few. There's no point advertising the papers, because if you do, the greater chance is that it will just be the three that will submit. So why waste time in advertising the papers? Okay, or the item that is required, you're going to spend so much time administratively to review it when the cost is actually very low. So you could apply to PPA, or that you've even done a competitive tender. Not many people have submitted. Meanwhile, you know that there are people who can actually take part. So then you write to PPA under what we call the restricted tender. So these are the two methods that will require that the entity comes to PPA. Then the board will consider the application. And if the board is satisfied, then a decision will be taken to approve it. So I'm saying that before the board approves that, one of the things we would like to see is that the person that the assignment is going to be given to provide a cyber security service, that institution or the individual is what? Is certified or licensed. But outside of the PPA, if any institution, so for example, the Cybersecurity Authority itself takes a decision to engage a consultant to provide a cybersecurity service to them, that consultant needs to be what? Certified. If GRA or Volta River Authority for some reason decides, or the municipal assembly that was affected last night decides to what? Engage somebody to go into their system to repair the damage that has been caused. You can't just allow anybody at all to go and do that. Okay? That person could even do more harm than good. So we need to ensure that that person to be engaged must demonstrate that he's been licensed by what? Cybersecurity Authority. So the municipal assembly, as part of the documents that you require from the tenders, will ensure that this is part of it. Okay? So it's a qualification requirement. So if they don't have it, in fact, as far as competition is concerned, if that person hasn't got it, as part of the preliminary processes, that person will be dropped. who even decide to go to the next stages. It's a pre-qualification, it's a qualification requirement under section 22 of the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we'll pick more thought from your end. A while from the Business and Financial Times.
My question is, the digital space is transient, continuously changes. What steps are there to ensure you evaluate new trends in the cybersecurity environment with regards to the regulation?
Okay, so we've noted that. We can take one or two more. Makpapa from Ghana News Agency would want to pick up your question also for our dignitaries to respond.
Thank you. I just want to get a clarification. How extensively has the authority engaged the service providers? Because we wouldn't want to know the deadline comes and they come back and say there's not been any extensive consultation. So how far has the authority gone with the consultations?
Thank you very much. Dr. Ibresiako.
Correct. Sir, please, the media house. I didn't catch that.
Ghana News Agency.
JNA. Perfect. Certainly, Frank, you also make comment on that. The BFT, we can't even predict what is likely to happen. I think it's a scary environment. But the reality is we don't have control, isn't it? Especially, since it has always been that the incident happens or the crime happens, then the response is what? Activated. But I think we can be proactive using research and development, right? And I think that is an angle the authority is doing. We monitor, we get reports. 292 people report to us, and that gives us some trend. We also look at technological development, like blockchain technology, for example, and the crypto issues arise, and it means illegal financial flow moving through that. Now, artificial intelligence is there. We are looking at potentially third-party manipulating what system. So I think as a forward-thinking institution, you look at this to be able to make recommendations, and if it requires legislative what changes and amendment. But I think our laws are, and Frank, I think I like the fact that you mentioned a provision that covers us that as we get into such environments, we can always, the PPA board can take certain decision to incorporate those requirements as they seem fit. So I think that is how it is playing out. But unless we are able to predict the next major big thing happening within the technology space, it has to happen first before we can, as I mentioned to you, crypto, right? AI, and then we start to look at the potential threat development around those areas. The other one will be the engagement. So just to be fair, I will let my colleague who has been leading this process in-house to Madam Jennifer, just to throw more light on a few things that I've done. I did mention, I think we are overdoing the engagement. We are teaching, training, building capacity as well, and she has been leading that within the team. Madam Jennifer, please.
So in terms of engagements, we've done a lot of extensive engagements with industry, cybersecurity professional bodies. We've done public awareness through our social media handles, social media channels, broadcasting radio stations, and we've done a whole lot of media engagements, invited industry bodies, businesses, explained the requirements that each of these entities would have to satisfy in order to obtain a license or a relevant accreditation. So extensive media engagement is ongoing, and even this press briefing is, one of such. And we aren't going to stop until majority of these entities are in compliance with the law. Thank you.
I think, Jane, you've covered some of them. If I go to Google now and I type cybersecurity license, there are quite a lot. So the evidence is out there for you to see how many. But maybe, Madam Jennifer, the next session, give them numbers. How many? Thank you. Rob, please, if you want to comment on that. Okay. All right.
So this is just for the attention of the media. What the Cybersecurity Authority is doing is not certification. We are licensing and we are accrediting. Sir, you have the microphone.
I am Kojo Mensah Brompa. I work with Adum TV and Adum FM. So the grace period is from now to 30th September. After 30th September, what next?
I'll ask my legal person to answer. Madam, what happens to us after?
So after 30th September, there are administrative penalties in the Act that will be applied to non-compliant entities. So this is a grace period. There are sections of the law requiring that cybersecurity service providers obtain a license from the Cybersecurity Authority. And so there are administrative penalties, stipulated in the Act that will be applied, sanctions that will be applied to entities who are found to be in violation of the Act. So after 30th September, we'll enforce the Act and the necessary administrative penalties shall be applied. Thank you.
I think for your reference from Adum, Section 49, subsection 2 details, it provides the basis for the administrative penalties there. There is a law which was done with some kind of teeth. Maybe we should have highlighted that. You won't find many legislations that clearly a failure to comply with a provision, the next line will stipulate the sort of punishment. It's not really about prosecution to send people to prison and others. It's a commercial environment, isn't it? If you are doing the service, making money, there are some commercial things you need to pay. We need money to fund cybersecurity. In fact, the law actually established cybersecurity fund, and administrative penalties will go in there to support the process. But again, the framers did not also look at just administrative sanctions, but there are criminal sanctions as well, depending on the kind and the level of non-compliance that a person or an institution exhibit around the law. Thank you.
My name is,
Radio.
thank you. My name is Philip Asiao. I work with Asasi Radio. Adding to what my colleague said, so there are sanctions, and in the event where a professional flouts this continuously, I'm looking at how punitive this is. Do you unlicense the person? Does the person stand that chance to be evicted out of our cybersecurity space? And the other thing is, or the other question is, you have licensed people. Essentially, you're giving us faith in them that what they're doing is approved or is right. Is it within your remit for us to come to you when we are not satisfied with the kind of service we are receiving? Because you've essentially told us they are good at what they do.
I like the word you said. You have told us they are good at what they do. That's very true, and that is why you always have a complaint mechanism. But Madam Jennifer, if you'll be able to speak on the, I'm reading around, is it habitual offenders? Persistently. Does the law even allows room to flout the rules persistently? I don't think so, but I would like you to comment on that after I've made my submission on the, and your second point is on the complaints. Certainly, I think in every fair, as my colleague mentioned, transparent and forward-thinking regulatory environment you need to create. Environment you are building trust, isn't it? This is a public good. Whenever you are delivering public good, public service, I think that complaint mechanism is good. Yes, indeed, the authority will accredit and license based on the information provided at the material point in time, isn't it? That does not guarantee, the word here is what? Guarantee that the person is going to do what is right. And therefore, we, as part of the licensing conditions, we've included the fact that the public or recipient of their services will have a right to what? To make complaint about what they do. And if they do not handle themselves well, and that complaint comes, and of course, again, the due process is exhausted, and it's established that indeed you didn't provide a service to a level of satisfaction. Of course, the same ecosystem we are putting together what we call assessors. So this is an industry, it's not just authority ourselves. We're going to do that with credible industry players as assessors who will be able to even also make a panel of assessors to say, look, this service was delivered below what? Average. It can be a warning, it can be the license being taken off, and those modalities are being worked out by the legal department. So certainly there's a mechanism for you to complain and say, look, the licenses that they hold, tier 1 license, they don't merit it because the service, and we'll investigate that and take the necessary action. But Madam Jennifer, if you can also understand CSA Radio with respect to the first question.
To add on to what my boss has said, the administrative penalties are quite stringent and to serve as a deterrent to people who would want to, flout the obligations under the Act. But if you are a habitual offender, as he indicated, there are also, criminal sanctions. You could actually end up having 2 years or about 5 years imprisonment. And I do believe no people will enjoy, these sanctions. And so the whole rationale is to have these sanctions to serve as a deterrent, but just have in mind that habitual offenders could end up, in prison. And also, when it comes to license holders who flout maybe the terms and conditions of their license, the law allows for revocation. So your license could actually be revoked if you flout the terms and conditions of the license or accreditation that has been granted to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Jennifer.
Make a comment?
So we will give you the opportunity for exclusive interviews after this event, but I think we'll take our final comment from the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Procurement Authority, and then Dr. Albert Nchibwesiako of the Cybersecurity Authority.
Just to say a very big thank you to Doc for organizing this very important event. And I'm very happy with some of the questions raised or asked by the media. It shows the level of enthusiasm they have on this as well. But the fact is that no one knows tomorrow. So that is the issue with cyber crime. So you never know how things will pan out. I think the good thing is that in terms of legislation, if something comes up which the current law, Act 1038, does not cover, I'm sure that the Cybersecurity Authority and these relevant stakeholders will want to push to ensure that some amendments are made to the law to cover some of these issues. But as far as PPA is concerned, we are very committed. That is how I'm here with all the people who matter in the authority as far as management is concerned, to ensure that we give teeth to this very important arrangement that has taken place. And we are very hopeful that we'll continue to work and collaborate together with the Cybersecurity Authority. And we do the same with other institutions like NITA. So for example, you cannot just go and procure Microsoft's products without them having granted authorization for that. So we'll continue to do this. Once again, thank you very much, and then I pray that all goes well for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that. Please let's appreciate Mr. Frank Mante. We'll take the final statement from Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Enchibwesiako.
Well, I think similar to what my senior Frank has mentioned, it's exciting to hear the media ask on these pertinent questions and your resolve to help promote this agenda. The fourth arm of government granted by the Constitution. Oh, I'm not a lawyer, but maybe, Madam Lawyer? Okay. I think, of course, it reflects your power, isn't it, within the civic space. I want to be very candid here. I think promoting best practice is a shared responsibility. You know, I don't think senior would have referred you with that description if you do not have a solid, impactful role within this discourse. And I think your message is key. How you articulate this is so important. How you engage with the businesses. We will. I must also say that there isn't any regulatory regime which is what? Perfect. No, I haven't seen one. And therefore, as a regulatory body, we are always available to engage and discuss, but we will not stop in terms of doing what is right to protect our digital citizens, whether in government, in the business environment, our children, or a public user. I think that one, we have the mandate to deliver, and we are staying on course, and we're very much happy to receive feedback as you are promoting this enterprise for the good of the Republic. So thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, so we also want to thank the virtual audience, those who joined us on our social media pages for the live streaming of the press conference. Thanks to all of you, to GTV, Joy News, TV3, Peace FM, City, Adom, that is a Ghana news agency, Daily Guide, Asasi Radio, UTV, Ghanaian Times, and of course, the Business and Financial Times, Daily Graphic, Emilia. Thank you very much for your presence today. We sincerely appreciate you. And to our partners, Public Procurement Authority, we appreciate not just your audience, your affirmation. Please let's appreciate the PPA. Let's do appreciate them with a hand of applause. Once again, thank you. Thank you. So we are done for this press conference. Up next is the exclusive interviews. We're going to have the interviews at our front office. Mr. Frank Mante will be available. Director General Dr. Albert Enchibwesiako would also be available. But for the preliminaries, we will listen to Mr. Frank Mante first. For those of you who would want to have exclusive interviews with him, just been prompted that there are a number of questions also for Dr. Albert Enchibwesiako, but we will have the exclusive with PPA first, and then we'll have another segment for the CSA. Once again, thank you very much. We move to the front office for the exclusive engagement. Thank you.